the Greek language has very specific meanings. It's a very accurate language. And depending on its, how it's used in the interpretation, you can tell very exactly what the author meant. And one of the words that in the Greek language that's used for love is the word eros. And if you were to open up to your bulletin this morning, you would see that inside of there is the little tan insert that says eros inside of it. And it is the actual word from which we get erotic. And it's the word that means kind of a sexual love, but it even goes beyond a sexual love, as in a marriage type of love, to a very self-serving kind of love. If I was to ask you, where do Americans get their ideas about love? We would have a various wide array of answers. For one thing, a lot of people get their ideas about love when you're checking out at the grocery store and you slide your gum or milk or whatever you have onto the little aisle that's going along towards paying for it, and you look along the side of you right there, and what is there? Tabloids and magazines. You got Cosmo, you got Woman's World, you got National Enquirer, you got all these different magazines. And without fail, especially women's magazines, talk about love. Where do you find your ideas about love? You got your teen magazines, and it says, 21 ways to find out if he really loves you. Take this quiz. And you open up, and there's a little quiz inside there, and you check your little boxes. Did he say hello to you when you walked down the hallway today? Yes? No? He wanted to? Check this box. And you check all your little boxes, and you add up all your little points, and at the end you figure out, yes, he loves you deeply. You'll be married for 50 years. Maybe the next box is, he loves you, but he has a hard time expressing it. The next one is, you better pray, girlfriend. Because he doesn't love you at all. He shows no interest in you. Do not pursue this young man. So you try to figure out where you're at in the scheme of love. If you were to look all across our society, people would have different ideas of love. But one thing, if I were to say to you, what do you think the majority of the people in America would say about love? One thing that they would probably say is it has something to do with sex. And that is the word that the Greeks would say is eros kinds of love. Is that it's very self-serving kinds of love. It's, in other words, what you can do for me kind of love. Very interestingly, the Bible never uses the word eros to describe love. Eros you will not find in any of the New Testament Greek manuscripts. They do not use that word for love, because in that culture it had the connotation of the temple to Diana. And you can see it if you ever travel over there. And they would have thousands of women that were in the temple that were really just prostitutes. And in order to worship Diana, you would go into the temple prostitute. So the New Testament writers would never use that word because of the connotations it had. In the same way in America, if I was to say the word love, that's what a lot of people would associate love with. Is a very sexual, self-serving kind of love. And isn't that amazing how even God, who has created the sexual union to be such a beautiful thing between married people, would not even use that word to describe it, because even in the sexual experience it is not supposed to be used as a totally self-serving kind of union. In fact, it is just the opposite, as we shall see as we go on. This morning, what is your definition of love? You buy those packets, the little cardboard packets, and it has like 400 little ones in there, so you just kind of give those to people that you really don't care about. You don't really even know their names, you just kind of, here, have a Valentine. But there's those ones in there. It comes with like 2 or 3. And one you save for mom, but the other 2 is like, wow, I need to find somebody I really love for these. And so that was mine to Brandy. I wrote on the inside of there, I really, like you, or whatever I could come up with in 4th grade. And so I was expecting that in return. And it didn't get returned to me. And as you can see, 30 years later, I am still not quite recovered from that. Still bothers me to this day. But in a sense, being a 4th grader, that was my eros kind of love, because it was self-serving. I didn't really care about Brandy. I just cared about how she made me feel, about how hopefully she would make me feel special. That wasn't a biblical kind of love. In fact, eros types of love is exactly the kind of love that you will have if you never allow God to permeate your mind and your spirit. Because it is a humanistic kind of love. When I first got married, I really didn't know what I was doing. Really didn't know what I was getting into. I would have people say to me, "Oh, Stick, please don't get married, man. You're going to drive someone insane." But I was like, you know what? I can do this. I can do marriage. Because all you have to do is just wear a ring and come home once in a while. And I learned very quickly that that is not marriage. That is not love. Because even if you are to totally please yourself alone inside of marriage, your marriage will not last. Because it is an eros type of love. It is totally self-serving and self-seeking. Whatever you put out is not as much as you expect to be put back in. That is an eros kind of love that you invest expecting to get more than you've put in. The second word is phileo. And it is the word that we get Philadelphia from, the city of brotherly love. For you history buffs in here, I never was really good at history, but and I didn't know that it was the first capital of the United States. So if you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire sometime and that comes up, it's not Washington, D.C., okay? It's Philadelphia. Philadelphia was the first capital of the United States. It was actually that from 1781 to 1800. William Penn and the Quakers actually named that city the city of brotherly love. So it was a safe haven for those that wanted to practice their own religious beliefs. Those that had fled Europe. And that's where we get the idea. It's an affectionate kind of friendship love. It's a give and take between two people. It's a mutual love between two people. This is used to describe, oftentimes, the love between Christians. The first word is eros, the second word is phileo, and the last word is agape. These are the three different Greek words for love. Whereas if I would say love in our culture, what do you love? Oh, I love pizza, I love my motorcycle, I love my wife, I love my son, I love to play racquetball, whatever it is. We would just have no idea kind of what you mean. What do you mean by love? And in the Greek culture, this is exactly what they would say. Eros, phileo, or agape. And the last word, agape, in the Greek culture was hardly ever used, to tell you the truth. It was a very generic word for love. Eros, for those of you that read Plato and Socrates, this word is found all over the place. In Homer, in the Iliad, eros is all over the place because it was their word for love. But in the Bible, never uses it. In Greek culture, in all the playwrights, they would almost never use agape. In the Bible, it's one of the main words they ever use, especially in John. John uses agape over and over and over. How fitting that the Bible infuses a word for love that was generically used in the culture with a specific, special meaning of God. I want you to look at John 3:16. For God so agape the world, that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believed in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have your Bible and you have not begun to write in it, I encourage you to do so. I want you to put right next to love, circle that word wherever you can write it, write agape right in there. Because that is the word. It does not say, for God so eros the world. It does not say, for God so phileo the world. It says, for God so agape the world. Why does that matter? Because I want you to see something that in the agape, it is a totally one-way street of love from the greater to the lesser. It is a love that goes from, say, a king to the servant. It is a one-way street of love. God reached out in the form of Jesus to you and me who were totally alienated from himself by sin. The God that does exist loves you this morning. And how does he love you? He loves you with an agape kind of love.